Sleen, the entire floor is yours tonight. Anything you want to ask. Have you got a question or two? Good.
Assalamu alaikum.
I didn't know. I should have asked you first, please. Yes.
Huzur, my question is that the splitting of the moon by Hazrat Muhammad, peace be upon him. Would you kindly explain what was the phenomenon and what happened at that time?
Well, I don't know what the phenomena was. I can just suggest a few possibilities, and that is all. And the scientists, in fact, are working on various possibilities of a phenomena happening on moon, in fact. Not with relation to what happened at the time of Huzur Akram sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but in relation to quite an independent observation which the scientists made. Occasionally, some very large pieces of asteroids fall on the surfaces of various stars and planets. And moon is also occasionally hit by these very large, let's say, small asteroids. They are much bigger than meteorites, say of a diameter of between 2 to 6 kilometers. And their impact is very strong. So much so that the entire planet is shaken, and a dust cloud rises which can obscure the vision of the outside observers and sometimes create the impression of a split. Right from the north to south, or whichever direction in whichever direction it happens, it changes. But the cloud that is formed is so big, so huge, that it can obstruct the vision of a very large area. So the scientists say generally this happens after 100,000 years or so with moon. But they recently observed a phenomena which was recorded by a priest in England, that this phenomena took place about 600 years ago. Here, it was observed from here. And the evidence, they think, is quite strong. And the investigations revealed that there was every likelihood of this to have happened. So that means that their concept of 100 years interval is broken anyway. So some odd stray traveler of the space can hit the moon or any other surface. So that is one possibility, that something might have struck the moon right at that moment, if not that big, of some smaller size, but enough to create a to release a dust cloud which could have parted the moon halfway. Also, there is a remote possibility of an earthquake, but the scientists don't believe the center of the moon is a live center and it can create earthquakes anymore. So there is a third possibility of a vision, of a worldwide vision that can be created by Allah. So by the splitting of the moon, we may understand Allah meant a vision of the people as far as the observers went. If they had observed that phenomena, that was enough for them, because it exactly coincided with the revelation and the raised finger of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And according to the traditions and other historical reports, Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam recited the verse first and raised his finger, and as everybody present looked up, they observed this phenomena. And some others also did on their own, not knowing that this had happened. So the Holy Quran records it as اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر. And then it goes on to say what is the next verse? Sehrum mustamir. Is yaro ayatan qalu sehrum mustamir. And whenever they observe a sign from Allah, they say it is a magic which is wrought. So that verse proves positively that this thing did happen. Now this is something not as a claim by the Muslims, but this is an accepted principle to the rest of the world scholars, that if the Holy Quran records an event of its own time, that event must have taken place, otherwise the followers of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have immediately left him, because they believed in his truth, not na'udzubillah min zalik, and against his falsehood. So it is impossible for the Holy Quran to record an event of the time distortedly. So or even the most antagonistic Western scholars I know, they admit this, that if an event is recorded by the Holy Quran, that must be accepted as such. So this has been recorded as an event with the following comments. So it's impossible for this event not to have happened. This is out of question. So the rest is just a surmise how it might have happened. It's anybody's guess. So I tend to believe that something must have hit the surface of the moon, causing a great dust cloud, which obstructed the vision for a while until it settled down, and people saw moon split. Or another thing, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. Some star with a tail, or a big enough star, might have crossed the path of the moon and earth, in between, with the result that a temporary split and then disappearance could have been caused. That is my fourth proposition. And this is also logically and scientifically not only acceptable, but I think of all the propositions which I have mentioned, this is most probable, because the events don't speak of a cloud or a split of the moon, let's say, which lasted very long. In the cloud theory, that split should have lasted for a very long period of at least many hours. But the way the Holy Quran describes it and the way the people recorded it, it seems it was a split-second phenomena which happened and then disappeared. So that thing can be caused by some star or some asteroid big enough to have passed at a very high speed along the surface of the moon, and that high-speed crossing could have created this phenomenon. But as far as the incident is concerned, that did happen, that we know, and this is an accepted principle by all the scholarly people. Yes, please, Mr. Zafullah. You want to say something? You can go to the microphone and get your question recorded.
Hazur, my question is this. Muslims hold divergent views on the question of insurance as to whether Islam approves it or not, since it is a Western device meant to spread risks of a common nature amongst many people with identical interests. I want to know.
And also, this is your own profession now, huh?
Sir?
It directly concerns your profession as well.
Yes, sir.
You are in the banking, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
That's right, yes. Please, if you have another question to ask, you can keep sitting there. You can get up from there, please. No. I have explained it many a time before, and I'll repeat it for you, that insurance as such is not prohibited in Islam. Islam goes for the security, preaches security, promotes security. and peace. But that should be brought about in a legal manner. That is, according to Islamic law, the way you achieve the security should be legal. Now, the insurance as such is not prohibited. In fact, it is a very good concept. But the way the insurance companies ran in the beginning, as they came into the offing, there were two strong objections from Islamic point of view could be raised against them. Number one, they had a very strong permanent feature of usury or interest. And secondly, they had a very prominent and strong feature of, what do you call it? Game of chance? Gambling, that's right, yes. So there was a game of chance or gambling attached to it so tenaciously that the very concept of insurance was woven with these two threads of interest and gambling. Either you get much more than you pay, or you lose all the deposit whatsoever. That was how the insurance began. So when Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ was written to by somebody who had got himself insured, Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ did not reject the idea of insurance outright. What he wanted to know was, write to me the conditions, then I'll decide. So when the conditions were reported to him, he said it has both the elements of interest and gambling. So even if you have to run a loss, you forget about it and leave the insurance immediately. So he left. Now, from time to time, this question was taken up by Jamaat Ahmadiyya, and sometimes independent boards of scholars were constituted, and sometimes Majlis-e-Iftah was given the task of threshing the subject out again, considering the changes in the pattern of insurance which have been taking place ever since. I was also once appointed a member of the committee, and it was my task to collect the data of changing aspects of insurance historically. So my study revealed that the insurance as such has been traveling from un-Islamic values towards Islamic values, with the result that it was no longer a must for each participant or a policy holder to go into a contract on interest basis. It was ultimately left to him as a choice whether he would prefer an insurance with interest or without interest. Again, the element of gambling was also removed, because gradually insurance companies came into being, and now almost entire insurance companies have this, that you do not lose in any way the money you pay. You get it back, plus your risk is covered. Now that risk is covered through a law which is called the law of large numbers. In large numbers, the money which is accumulated and is put to some use, they can work out the profit, and they can work out the risks, and those risks can be covered to the extent that if you return the money of every policyholder in full, still you can meet the accidental expenses which may be incurred, death and other things. So because of this, both these elements were removed. Yet there was a third element which was pointed out by Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, and he said that although fundamentally and in principle these are the two objectionable elements, yet there is a third element to it, And that is that insurance has become an integral part of the Western banking system, and it helps accumulate money in a few hands. And insurance companies are also playing havoc with the world economy. Huge insurance companies and reinsurance companies have come into being, and they have become great capitalists. So where did their capital come from? In fact, they have become a source, a magnet for attracting money unless huge mountains are created. And that is against the general philosophy of Islam. Not a set principle in so many words, but the general financial philosophy of Islam does not promote collection of money in a few hands through a system which goes on increasing that concentration. So this was the objection raised by him. And he himself suggested in those days that if some sorts of insurance companies who are run on mutual basis, loss and profit basis with mutual shareholders, so that the policy makers also have some share in the company, and they in the long run are responsible for loss and profit, that would be something very close to Islam. That was one element which got introduced again, and this mutual insurance became more popular. So when I studied the history, I found it surprisingly gaining more ground, with the result that there is a constant ascending graph vis-a-vis the ratio between the mutual insurance companies and non-mutual insurance companies. So that was one factor which brought insurance of the present day still closer to Islam. Yet there was another factor which had to be looked into, that the insurance companies as such play dice. They gamble in a manner that when you calculate the risks, you'll be surprised to learn that if today we dissolve all the insurance companies, each insurance company would go under debt. What they are doing is, now this was some discovery which resulted out of my investigation. The fact is that they are in fact deceiving the world in a way. They present their budgets in a manner that they always appear to have more money than they have to pay. But the ordinary people do not know that they include in their budget of the present year the money which they have to pay to the future people, say about extending up to 20, 30, 40 years. They have already taken their money, they have consumed that money, and they are responsible for all the accidents and things and the full payment of the future 20 years. When they enter the next year, they get new income for the next year. So this fraud is never discovered by the people. It's a continuous process. But this continuous process ripens ultimately into some catastrophe, particularly during the crisis of the World War and things. And suddenly, these companies go bankrupt, and all the people who went to them for their security end up in total insecurity and loss. So all these things have to be taken into account. As far as the individual policyholder is concerned, all we can do is now to advise him that as far as your own decision is concerned, insurance as such is not against the principles of Islam. Try to get a policy with which you avoid both the elements of gambling as well as the interest, and hope for the best, if you must do it. But Hazrat Muslim also pointed out another point which is very interesting. He said, I have also reservations against insurance because if Ahmadis pay their extra money to insurance companies, how will they pay chanda to Jamaat Ahmadiyya? So in fact what they save according to the Holy Quran, that should go to Allah. يَسَلُونَكَ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ قُلِ الْعَفْوِ. They ask you, O Muhammad, peace be upon him, what they should spend in the way of Allah. Say whatever is left over. So Hazrat Muslim said that I see a great danger to the system of Chanda Ahmadiyyat, because it is the leftover with most of the people which they can pay. And there are very few rich people who can afford to do both things. But if at the ordinary level, people start paying the leftovers to the insurance company and they become insurance minded, then they would be weaned away from the Ahmadiyya system of contributions. That was the fear he expressed. And also, he assured Ahmadis that if for this sake they have their dependence upon Allah and get insured with Allah, paying their chanda instead of getting insured, I assure them that Allah's insurance company will treat them much better and much more generously. And they'll be looked after in ways that no insurance company can ever look after their policy holders. So this is the most final, the most clinching argument that I ever heard in favor of not insuring. And this is my personal inclination. But as far as the law is concerned, all we can do is we can advise Ahmadis, and that is all. As long as there is no element which is positively prohibited, we cannot stop them. But we can advise them and guide them to the right way. Those Ahmadis who have been paying chanda at their own personal sacrifices and without any regard to diverting that money to insurance companies and so on, they are much better off. They are looked after well by Allah and they are very happy, I know. So that is an experience to be gained before you judge. I think I have, though in short, but I have spoken of all the various aspects that I could speak on, right? Yes. Just a minute, another question from, have you got another question?
Not now.
Huh?
Not now.
Not now, okay, please.
I just wish to make an observation on the fourth element that you mentioned about insurance. The fact that
mutual
insurance, yes.
Mutual insurance?
No, the fourth element.
Which was that? Tell me.
You mentioned about the insurance companies going bankrupt.
Bankrupt ultimately. Yes, please. Yes.
On that possibility, the recent introduction amongst the banking and the insurance world has been that a fund has been set up. A mutual fund has been set up by the insurance companies. And the insurance companies themselves contribute to that fund, making sure that if any insurance companies goes bankrupt, they will do a life-saving operation.
This is what I mentioned. You have forgotten that I said reassurance.
So reinsurance is that the companies reinsure their policies.
The reinsurance companies are those with whom the insurance companies get insured.
Right.
And that happens when individually an insurance company goes bankrupt. They can look after them. But I mentioned a possibility of great world upheaval. In those cases, no reinsurance companies can pay for the entire world insurance systems.
Quite true.
Yes.
But, apart from the possibility of that upheaval occurring, where the whole banking system and the insurance system would collapse, in terms of individual insurance companies collapsing,
I know that there is a reinsurance. I agree fully. But I'm talking of the world wars which hit, do not directly. When the world wars approached, something goes wrong with the world economy. Recession set in. And many things begin to happen very crookedly and cunningly under the surface. And the money lenders, the world great money lenders, they begin to play havoc with the financial system of the world. And they are ready for launching themselves into the huge profits which wars offer them ultimately. So these are the times when these systems fail.
In fact,
such times came prior to the World Wars, First World War and the Second World War, and now you will see when the Third World War comes, things of this crooked nature will begin to happen.
So in fact, that observation has been made in the recent financial collapse of one of the leading banks in the United States and one of the leading banks in the United Kingdom.
Correct.
This has happened without actually a world war occurring.
No, but the economy was traveling in that direction. Already signs have appeared, and that was also one of the hits of those future possibilities. They do not appear suddenly all over the world. Things of that nature begin to happen here and there, ultimately drop by drop it becomes rain. So you are referring to the collapse of the American bank,
Continental
which
Illinois.
which was supported by all the other banks as well. For a while it was kept alive, but ultimately it capsized.
And
they couldn't keep it alive anymore.
Well, they have managed to rescue the bank and have appointed a new board.
Yes.
The FDIC have taken over.
That's right, but the previous bank is finished, a new bank has in fact come into being. That's right, yes.
And similarly, over the last weekend in the United Kingdom...
Is it your profession that you know of these things? I see. What's your profession?
Banking.
What are you in the banking?
Sir, I'm an executive officer with the Central Accounts Division.
I see, that's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So any other question, please? And you'll observe many interesting things happening when the poor countries will not be able to pay back their debts. Then other elements will creep into this. You have another observation about that to make? Please come on.
Well, I just wanted to point out that the major banks in fact are being forced into a situation where they have to reschedule the debts of the third world countries, and thereby it becomes a system where it goes on and on and on, and ultimately a day will come, as you've observed, which will end up creating havoc in the world.
Right. Very, very minute things happen, though in unconcerned, indirectly, they begin to influence these things. But they do happen. Now, for instance, the medical profession directly has nothing to do with it, as Dr. Latif Qureshi would bear me out. But in America and other advanced countries, the medical risks have been rising steadily, with the result that the doctors felt very much insecure. Now, this is how this insurance company has become a sort of racket, mafia type thing, which has sent its tentacles into all professions and all clean things. Now, the result was that because of the American laws, anyone who felt that the doctor had been negligent to him could sue him. And the amount against which he sued was so colossal that if the doctor sold out all his property, he could not meet that demand. The result was that he immediately got insured against that sum. And when he got insured against that sum, he had the possibility of quite a few such cases. So the insurance amount was quite huge. He had to pay a huge premium, with the result that he raised his fees and charged these patients. And a vicious circle started, with the result that now to become ill in United States, if you are not insured, is a greater risk than to die. So the result is that the whole system has completely gone out of the control of either the patients or the physicians, and they have been caught up under the clutches of great insurance companies. Now, during the recessions, what happens? People then do not pay extras. They would rather run the risks than pay heavily for these things. And suddenly the insurance companies start getting less and less from these directions previously which supported them quite substantially. So the system of medical reassurance and some others also get affected, because then bread becomes more important gradually in the life of everybody. And these insurance companies in the advanced countries are running on an artificial economy and artificial way of life. So during the recessions, that way of life, which is artificial and which has in fact risen much beyond the substance of the economy. Skyscrapers of useless requirements are built, without which man could live. So they began to be demolished from the top, and also the insurance companies become diminished exactly in correspondence with that diminution. The result is that suddenly they are caught in this mess and they can't help. And then the people are hit back once again. And again they lower their extra spendings. So economy, once it has lost its balance and organization, then it goes tumbling down and nobody can stop. No world government can stop it. So these things happen, and this is why Islamic systems are the safest systems. They are based on morality, on reality, on a poise and balance. So the only safety lies in Islamic concepts, whether they are about the financial systems or morality, whatever they be. Yes, please.
Islam. Huzur, the prophecies made by Masih Maud wasalam, we know that the events which are going to happen, inshallah, in favor of Ahmadiyyat. Why we do not bring it before the others?
Why? Tell me.
So because
this is my question to you.
Because some people in Pakistan, I talked with them. They asked me that why do we not bring before them the
This is what I asked you too. Tell me.
So they said,
why have you not been doing it?
They says that.
No, forget them. I'm asking you now.
Yes. So they say we fit after the event has happened.
I say forget about them, please, for a while.
Yes, sir.
And tell me the same question which was put to you, I put to you myself.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you do it?
Sorry?
Why don't you do it?
Well, one of the khutbah of Huzur was about this. Khutbah or some dars that the Jamaat, the people of Jamaat should not
tell the prophecies of Hazrat Masih Maud to others?
No, about the events which are going to happen. Some people explained those prophecies.
No, the explanations can be wrong.
Yes,
but the prophecies are the substance. They are true. You must spread the prophecies without unduly making your inferences.
Yes.
What harms the cause of religion is the imbalanced inferences which are drawn by some imbalanced people. For instance, some are very fond of numbers. They go on inferring things which were never mentioned in any prophecy, either of the Holy Quran or Hazrat Masih Maud wasalam. And then they go on betting on these things. And they say, this is our inference, and it must happen like this, and we bet. So the result is that when these things do not occur as predicted by that gentleman, not by Hazrat Masih Maud wasalam, people are given an excuse to mock at Ahmadiyyat, to laugh at it and say, these prophecies are wrong. So the only right way to go about it is to present the prophecies as such. Like Tajalliyat-e Ilahiyya is a very good pamphlet on this. You should publish it, distribute it among your friends, and let the people make their own inferences without your comments.
So the other thing, another question, that the people use Ya Allah and Ya Muhammad.
That I have repeatedly answered.
This is
that to say Ya Allah, of course, is not wrong.
Yes, sir.
Is that?
No, it's
okay.
not.
Ya Muhammad is not wrong either if you address him by way of prayers for him or by way of love for him. Hazrat Masih Maud in his poems have addressed him in extreme love, as addressing him, oh my dear, oh my so-and-so. What is Ya? What else is Ya? So that is not wrong at all. But if you address him like Allah, so whether you use the word Ya or not, that is wrong. It depends on how you address him. You see, when Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam has told us, when you visit graveyard, you say Assalamu alaikum Ya Ahlul Qubur. So if just ordinary sinful Ahlul Qubur can be addressed as Ya, why not the greatest of the prophets? But it all depends on your attitude. Some people address him as Ya, as a living thing, like as if a ghost has visited them. That's very insulting, both to him and to God. Because that is like calling partner to Allah and also ridiculing the concept of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as if he's like a common ghost. You mention him and say sim and something happens. Rub against the lamp and he's there. So they say, you say Ya Muhammad and he's before you, you stand up from the chair, and whenever you are holding such sessions as hymns to him, in his prayers you sing things, he comes on Mawlud Sharif and things. So this concept is wrong. There is nothing wrong with addressing him as Ya Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's a love. If it's an expression of love, it's most welcome.
Another question?
Okay, but somebody has come. Not in front of you. So give him a chance first. Yes. Yes. Are you coming all the way from Birmingham?
I came this morning.
This morning, I see. And you mean to stay here the night?
Yes.
Stay over where?
In Hounslow.
I see.
I put a client in Reading.
Right.
Hazur, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu
Hazur's guidance is required about principles which should be borne in mind about the interpretation of dreams.
That is one of those questions which you call short questions with very long answers. Isn't it? Hazrat Masih Maud has written so much on dreams in every respect that you will remain very poorer off if you do not read all that has been written by Hazrat Masih Maud in Haqiqatul Wahi, in many other books, in Shahadatul Quran, in other places. He has quoted many dreams, he has mentioned the phenomena, he has warned us of the pitfalls and told us the ways and means to judge our dreams, how far they are messages from Allah, how far they can be treated safely as messages from Allah, how far they should be treated as your own wishful thinking. And again, even if they come true, whether they are a sign of your piety or just a phenomena happening which happens generally from Allah to all mankind, regardless of whether that person is pious or not, just to give him a hint of the presence of God. So this is a very vast subject, and it's not possible for me to address it in such a short time as available during such sessions. But in short, I think, because you raised the question, I should like to say a few things on this. The most important thing is that the dreams which are from Allah have a special language and a message which many often cannot be understood by the person who sees the dream. And it is something beyond his imagination. It is not like a dream that a girl will be born to you or a boy will be born to you. It has a different character in its language, which is cryptic, of course. Now, by the way, when people say a girl will be born to somebody I have seen in a dream, if a boy is born, they always say, see, my dream has come true. Because whenever you see a girl, it is a boy. And when a girl is born, you say, see, girl is born, I told you. So this is just making mockery of dreams. Ahmadis should be more serious-minded about it, because this is a science, it is not a joke. So, first of all, behave in a more sensible and responsible manner when you discuss dreams. Secondly, you should try to understand the language, and whenever one sees such a dream which has a special language, he is the best judge, because he knows it is different from other dreams. He has a very strong impact on his person, and then he goes to others and searches for such person who would understand the message. The illustration, the best illustration in fact of this type has been given in the Holy Quran in Surah Yusuf. Twice. Once, the dream of Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, who was going to be the greatest interpreter of dreams of his time. Yet he could not understand his own dream. So innocently, he asked his father about that dream, that it was the father who had to warn him, look here, don't mention it to your brothers or you will have it. They may do harm to you because they will know. So the interpreter, the one who was to be made interpreter of dreams, was so innocent that there was nothing wishfulness in him. Because if he had been of a wishful nature, he should have immediately understood the meaning of that dream. Would have become so obvious to him, but he was so humble, so detached, that it was perplexing to him. He thought it could not happen. So a true interpreter of the dream must have a detached personality. But anyway, that is the first lesson which we draw from dreams of signs, carrying some certain sign language. Later on, the same person is made one of the greatest interpreters of dream. And after Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, perhaps the greatest, because no other prophet is mentioned as a specialist in that. So when Pharaoh sees a dream, that dream is not only strange looking, but he knows, as none else does, that this is a message, this is a cryptic language, and despite the fact that the best available scholars of his time pooh-poohed the dream and rejected it as just a fishful thinking or something which has happened to you, maybe a visitation from a bad soul or something, he did not accept that view. It kept bothering him, and when somebody suggested to him, there was somebody in the prison who knows the art of interpreting dreams, he was immediately sent for. And that was Hazrat Yusuf. So the way he interpreted was so beautifully fitted with the story, with the language, that everyone who heard must have got convinced immediately. Because when the interpretation is correct, it just clicks in. Like a key of the right key of a lock, it works and you know that this is going to work the moment you move it. The very style of the movement, the very flow will tell you that this is the right key. So the interpretation has to fit in. It should not be just, surmising and, searching out for this and that. A clear positive dream has a clear positive answer. That must be remembered. But there are other dreams which are intermixed. Because the quality of the person who sees the dream also has a very important role to play in the language of dreams. And the umniya, according to the terminology of the Holy Quran, of a person plays a very important role. Sometimes a dream is not entirely a clear-cut message, but part of it is from wishful thinking, part of it is from the psychological fears, and the part of it is also a message. So when the internal machinery is motivated by some angels to give a message of God, those people who do not entirely belong to Allah, they have other factors come into force. And they begin to interfere with the phenomena of dream and add certain things here and there. So it becomes a complex phenomena. Such dreams would not have, of course, a very clear-cut message. There are many possibilities then which arise. Either perhaps this is the case or that is the case. And that can only be interpreted by those who are given the knowledge by Allah to interpret the dream, or who are of a nature clearly, of a clear-minded nature, unbiased and detached from their wishful thinking, etc. Generally, these people are better judges of dreams. And thirdly, this must be borne in mind, that if somebody's dream has come true, he should not become proud of it. That is very important. Because sometimes, as Masih Maud has mentioned, even prostitutes see dreams which come true. And that phenomena springs from Allah's being Rahman. Because the Holy Quran tells us that His attribute of Rahmaniyat is so all-consuming, comprehensive, that it leaves nothing out. In the worldly provisions as well as in the spiritual provisions, sometimes He shows His Rahmaniyat regardless of the person's own views. Even those who call bad names, who call Allah bad names, even they are sometimes shown a good dream, correct dream. That is the phenomena, according to Hazrat Masih Maud, which is a sprinkling of the existence of, the evidence of existence of Allah. It happens here and there, not only in the religious communities, because otherwise the non-religious communities would say this is something happens to you, it is a psychological case, because you are religious, so you keep on thinking in these terms. Even your mad people have such dreams. But these things happen with even such people who are totally committed atheists. Even in Russia today, such dreams are being shown. And the parapsychologists tend to believe that it is an inbuilt phenomena which have nothing to do with the existence of God, while it's impossible for it to be called an inbuilt phenomena, because the factors which happen in future are so many that it simply cannot be related to a phenomena of natural happenings. For instance, one of the ladies, her name is perhaps Wonga, I don't know how it's pronounced, but the state, Eastern European state where Aftab Sah was an ambassador once. No, the other one. No, the third one. No. Bulgaria. She belongs to Bulgaria. Now, this lady attracted so much attention that according to some writers, the Russians sent their team of investigators, including physicists, chemists, and other investigators, and who collected some data. And everybody was surprised to find out that lady Wonga could predict things, and those things happened exactly as she had predicted, and nobody could change it. Two very interesting incidents, which, if right, because that I have read in the book ESP, written by some German scholars, but I cannot vouch for the correctness of these events. But these events have also been mentioned elsewhere in many other writings of other parapsychologists. But they are very strange if they happened. It is said that somebody once walked into Wonga's house and she predicted that a child would be born to you, and when she would be 2.5 years, one of your neighbors who is like this, he would murder that child. Now, this was noted down by her, and this was also noted down by some investigators. And then they forgot, took things easily, and exactly after 2.5 years, that little child was murdered. And because it was noted down, the police went first to the person which was described, and he admitted the murder, and he actually had murdered. Similarly, an accident was predicted after a year or so, and in exactly the same situation, at exactly the same time, that accident took place. Now, no scientific explanation can be given or has ever been given. Although they think, not in the terms of God, but in terms of something they don't understand. But the fact is that the factors which go towards all these two incidents, making of these two accidents or incidents, they are so many and so diverse that it is impossible for any mind to conceive of all these factors and put them into computer and come out with exactly the manner of death and the date and the point where somebody would meet with an accident and another car would be coming from another direction and all this. This is just impossible. Now, they claimed that it just happened to Wonga.
I didn't believe that. I thought they were suppressing some relevant evidence because they are atheists and they don't want to speak of anything which would lead people to religion. So I made further investigation, and to my ultimate joy, I found a reference to how Wonga herself explained this phenomenon. She said that I met with a very tragic accident in my early life, which turned me against the worldly pursuits, and she also was became blind. And she was just disgusted with the world. Then one day a voice spoke to her, and that voice told her of some things which happened like that. So it is not her intuition which tells her it is always a sort of a voice which she hears which tells her that this is going to happen. Now this part of the evidence is suppressed by these parapsychologists because they want to turn it into a branch of parapsychology which is called precognition or something, foretelling of events through your internal machinery. No, that is the general name. It is a precognition. No. There is a particular term. It's not just any English word, but it's still a regular term for this. You know, like psychokinesis, it's a term under ESP, which means through the power of mind you can move things. And psychotherapy, which means you can heal patients through the power of mind. And similarly, telepathy. These are all terminologies. And so it is precognition, I think it is precognition perhaps, which is the word for that, to know something before it happens. Now I made further investigations now on the topic of dreams I'm telling you, and I came to discover some very interesting phenomena of which I spoke when I visited the University of Duke at Durham in the Department of Parapsychology. I told them that there is a very distinct line separating the religious phenomena from the materialistic phenomena. Although we believe it originates from Allah, but with no love from Allah for such people, it is just a phenomena which He has, shown or exhibited here and there in the world as specimens. But with the religious phenomena, when you are foretold of some ugly event, by certain means, prayers and things, you can avert it. But in the irreligious phenomena, it cannot be averted. So in all such cases which have been reported in parapsychology, none could be averted despite the warnings. It was so strongly positive that human beings could not change that fate. But in case of religious warnings of dreams and things, we know that through prayers and through many other devices of winning Allah's love, we get ultimately that thing averted, and we also see the signs that that thing might have happened. It's not just imagination, but we also get the evidence that it was definitely averted by Allah. It could have happened that way. Now this attempt once was made by parapsychologist from Czechoslovakia, who has now taken refuge in America. I think he is serving in some university near San Jose, perhaps at San Jose or some university close to it, in California, south of California. Although I tried to meet him during my last visit, but he had gone to Switzerland in those days, so I couldn't meet him. He took refuge in the United States, ran away from Czechoslovakia ultimately, and now he is serving as a professor of psychology or something there. Now he experimented with precognition and tried to avert what was told. That is something very interesting which he relates about his experiences. According to one author, and this is what I wanted to testify, to find out hear from his own lips if that had happened exactly like that, as was quoted by some author. But anyway, some author quotes him as telling of his experience that once one of his pupils, which was a lady, was made to see the future of some other girl who was a fast friend of this lady and who lived in about
at about a distance of 180 odd miles from this place where the experiment was conducted. And she was sent into a stance and was told to concentrate on that girl. Now she concentrated, and then she saw something so fearful happen that she started crying. And she was under such deep impact of that fearful event that she came out of the stance much earlier, despite the heavy dosing which are given for hypnotism. Much earlier than expected. She was terribly horrified and she was trembling. So she told the professor that what I saw was that my friend was sitting in a restaurant, a boy on a motor bicycle was going in her direction. Then he parked the motor bicycle outside and went in, and from his face I knew he was a vicious man, and he was a nasty man with evil thoughts. So I wanted to warn her, but I could not. I tried to speak and I could not. I was helpless. Then I saw him approach the table where she was sitting, and he told her that he has brought a message from her girlfriend who is waiting for her at some place, and he wants to carry her to that place because he happens to be his mutual friend. Now this, she knew, was totally false. And but the innocent girl, not suspecting anything, she started walking out with her, sat on the bicycle, motorcycle, and then halfway in some place which was deserted, he assaulted her in such a beastly manner that was the moment when she came out of the stance because of this very terrible experience. Now, they immediately started trying to contact that lady and warn her against this. But somehow the lines didn't work, or some other things happened, and they failed to establish the contact until next morning. And when they made the contact, she told it has already happened. And that lady was sobbing, and between her sobs and crying, she told her something terrible has happened to me, and what you are describing, in fact, has exactly happened in the manner you have seen. So this is the helplessness of this worldly phenomena. Even if you see it, you cannot avoid it. But through the very large and wide-scale experience of Ahmadis, we know that when we are warned by Allah, if we improve our conduct, if we attract Allah's mercy and love, and also pay some alms and pray to Him, such events are averted. So I told them, and everybody was surprised at this fine distinction. In fact, the professor there, now this was mentioned, I think, in the Parapsychological Institute, which is independent of the university. And the professor there, I remember, after my short address, got up and told that he has had a long experience, but never in his life he had heard such a thrilling address. And then he got my address noted down and wanted me to be a member, and wanted to find out my qualifications and things. So I said, I am not even a graduate, please forget me now. I can't be a member of a parapsychological institution where you have so many MDs and PhDs and all that. But still he was very modest about it. He said I should welcome me anytime I come. He should like me to address them again and so on. But this was my religious experience which impressed him, not the worldly knowledge at all. And that is what was lacking, as far as they are concerned. I quoted from Hazrat Masih Maud Islam's books. I had them translated. You were there also. Was it Yahya who prepared that for us? Yahya. Isa Harun. No, Yahya is in Karachi. It was Isa Harun. So he had them, these articles copied in some number, so I carried them with me and distributed some there. And everybody was absolutely surprised at the Ahmadiyya concept of parapsychology and how it is related to religious concepts. So that is enough about dreams for tonight, right? And no time for Salim anymore. Tomorrow, inshallah, right? Say the azan, please.